There are some sounds that just short-circuit your brain, you know? Things you don't hear so much as feel, like your DNA suddenly remembers it used to live out on the savannah, and now you're in mortal danger. For some folks, it's the snap of a branch in the woods, the bark of a big dog, maybe the rattle of a snake. For me, Jack Miller, age 34, proud owner of a half-mortgage house and a rapidly declining sense of dignity, it's the soul-chilling, high-pitched beep-beep-beep of a tow truck backing into my driveway at 7 a.m. on a Saturday. That's my body's cue to start sweating. So there I was, standing on my front porch in Oak Creek Estates, clutching a mug of stale coffee and a certified letter, in socks now ruined by coffee I just spilled on myself. The air smelled like impending doom and diesel exhaust. Some guy, with arms the size of hams, let's call him Brick, was lowering the hydraulic lift under my Honda Civic. That's right, my beloved Civic, 3 inches too close to the sidewalk, according to the clipboard he pointed at with a hand so dirty you could plant potatoes in his palm. HOA order, buddy, he grunted, cigarette barely hanging on to his bottom lip, blocking the sidewalk by 3 inches. Section 12, paragraph 4. 3 inches? I shouted over the noise, sounding exactly as tough as you'd imagine a software engineer who codes in slippers would sound. I measured it. It's 6 inches clear. Brick didn't even blink. Take it up with the board. I just tell him, I don't measure him. He was already strapping the chains on. At this point, I looked down at the letter in my hand, thick, cream-colored paper, the sort of thing that says, we could have just emailed you, but we wanted to make you nervous. The Oak Creek Estates Homeowners Association, preserving value, preserving peace. It was like living under the United Nations of petty tyranny. Inside, the letter said I was in violation level 2 for having midnight azure curtains facing the street. Apparently, as per the sacred community guidelines, all street-facing window treatments have to be oyster shell white, eggshell cream, or whispering beige. Who writes this stuff? Interior designers with Stockholm Syndrome? The fine? $250 a day until I fixed it. I turned and stared at my living room window. My midnight azure curtains were just navy blue blackout curtains from Target, $30 for the pair. I bought them so I could code at night without the glow from the streetlight searing my eyeballs. Now, they were enemy number 1. The tow truck driver finished his job, looking at me with the dead eyes of a man who's seen 1,000 arguments with soccer moms in pajama pants. $50 to drop it, $200 if I roll out. He held out a hand. I gave him my emergency pizza money, and he left, trailing enough smoke to kill a family of raccoons. I moved my Civic a few inches, took a time-stamped photo, and glared at my curtains like they'd personally ruined my life. But I knew who'd ruined my day. Brenda. Brenda St. James, president of the HOA and self-declared empress of the neighborhood. She made it her life's mission to keep Oak Creek orderly. She once fined my neighbor for having a plastic flamingo out of season. So I grabbed my keys and marched over to her place, 3 streets over Majestic Oak Boulevard, which in peak HOA irony had 0 oaks thanks to a leaf litter ban. Her house was a shrine to suburban conformity, flowers arranged like a Fibonacci sequence, grass cut to a military flat top. Her front door, painted welcoming beige, was as warm as a bank vault. I rang the doorbell. Beethoven's Ode to Joy played. If you're wondering, yes, that was the mood, joyful as a tax audit. Brenda opened the door, helmet hair unsullied, HOA crest on her shirt. She didn't smile, just pursed her lips so tight I thought her face might fold in on itself. Mr. Miller, I assume you received the correspondence. Brenda, I said, you're fining me $250 a day for blue curtains. They're just curtains. She sighed like I was asking her to solve world hunger. Not blue, Jack. Midnight azure. And it's not about the color. It's about cohesion. She whipped out a fan deck of paint swatches. Who carries a color wheel? Brenda does. Oak Creek is a brand. We need harmony. Your textiles disrupt the streetscape. They suggest anarchy. Anarchy? Brenda, they're curtains, not a political movement. Perception is reality, she said, and quoted the rules, eyes gleaming. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. She had me boxed in, replace the curtains, or else. Also, move your car, it's touching the expansion joint, technically a structural risk. I left, humiliation curdling in my stomach. I tried to be a reasonable adult. I really did. That afternoon, I bought 4 white curtain liners, $15 each, universal fit. Wrestling those onto the blue curtains was a whole event. I stabbed my finger, bled on the liner, then panicked, scrubbing the blood out so I wouldn't get fined for unapproved red spots. By sundown, the window was a monument to mediocrity. White, boring, perfect. I emailed the HOA, asking them to confirm remediation. Sunday morning, Brenda returned, with Steve, the HOA's Bluetooth-wearing vice president, a man who looks like his soul was uploaded to the cloud in 2009 and hasn't been updated since. We performed a site inspection, Steve said. It's a no-go, buddy. I stared. They're white. Whiter than either of you. Brenda was not amused. We're discussing texture. Your liners are crosshatch weave, not smooth. Guideline says smooth satin or velvet matte. The weave catches the light. You're kidding. You're using binoculars. Standard issue for ARC, Steve said deadpan. 10 times magnification. Fine. I'll get new ones. My hand was shaking now, equal parts anger and disbelief. And Steve said, checking a box, you're being fined for insubordination. Your tone yesterday was ungracious. Insubordination? I don't work for you. Brenda smiled the bureaucrat smile, one that comes with a contract and the power to destroy your week. Read the bylaws. Disrespectful behavior, $100 per incident. That was $600 by Friday, plus a lien on my house if I didn't pay. I watched them walk to the next house, Steve already measuring someone's grass. Something snapped. Not loud, just a cold click inside my chest. I tried to follow the rules. I spent my money, my time, tried to reason. It wasn't enough. They didn't want compliance. They wanted submission. But they'd made a mistake. I'm not just a guy who codes for a living. I'm a systems architect. My job is to find loopholes, break things, and fix them better. Brenda and Steve had no idea what was coming. I spent all night reading the HOA rules, over 400 pages. The rules were all there: grass height, trash cans, window treatments, even what kind of light bulbs were allowed. But nowhere did it say anything about digital displays. These rules were written in 1998. They didn't know about LED matrix panels that could turn a window into Times Square. And then I stumbled on something else. Brenda's consulting fee in the Financials tab, $4, $500 a month to her own LLC, BSJ Management. The flower consulting line item, $12 grand the week Brenda posted vacation pics from Italy. Our volunteer, HOA president, was siphoning cash to herself. Now it wasn't just personal, it was justice. So I called Hank, an old buddy of mine who installs high-voltage stuff for bars. I need a display in my window, I told him. Not TV bright, scoreboard bright. He cackled. You trying to signal aliens? No, just a thief. Monday morning, Hank rolled up in a van that looked like it lost a fight with a tree and several raccoons. He sized up the window, whistled, and said, "We're going to need more juice." By noon, we built a false wall in my living room. 48 square feet of commercial-grade LED panels, wired to a dedicated subpanel. We tested it at 10% brightness, and it was already enough to give you a suntan. Brenda, of course, tried to intervene. "What's all this?" she demanded, hands on hips, nostrils flared. I lied, told her it was a custom entertainment center. She started the timer on my friend's van, threatening towing fees for commercial vehicles over 60 minutes. Hank, unfazed, slapped a magnetic white sheet over his logo. Private vehicle now. Loophole, he grinned. As the final wires were being connected, Steve drove by on his golf cart. I'd covered the window in black plastic and told him it was emergency waterproofing for a mold risk. He nearly fainted. Suburbanites fear mold more than God. We finished by dusk. I set up the display software, loaded in my graphics, pie charts, bar graphs, text slides, documenting every dollar Brenda had pilfered from our dues. The sign would cycle through consulting fees, flower consulting expenses, nepotism contracts. I set the brightness to mild eye damage. Friday night was D-Day. Brenda always hosted a wine party on her porch, all the neighbors walking by my house. At sunset, I peeled off the black plastic, went inside, and waited. The sun dropped. People strolled past, wine in hand. I hit the play button. The effect was biblical. A blinding green light lit up the street. The words scrolled in 3-foot letters. Attention Oak Creek residents. Your HOA fees are being stolen. Pie charts followed. Car slowed down. Neighbors stopped and stared. Brenda came running, still holding her wine glass, shrieking for me to turn it off. "That's confidential," she yelled. "It's evidence," I shouted back, standing on the porch in sunglasses, feeling like Batman's dorkier cousin. A crowd formed. Brenda's protests fell flat. People started asking questions, demanding answers. Someone called the cops, real ones this time. Officer Miller, no relation, showed up, squinted at my sign, and asked, "Who's responsible for the tanning bed?" I owned it. Brenda ranted about bylaws. Officer Miller sighed, "Ma'am, I enforce the penal code, not the CC&Rs. He's on his property, not cursing, not naked. Not my problem." He looked at me. "Keep the brightness down, though." We got calls from the highway. Brenda was melting down in public, the neighbors circling like sharks at feeding time. Someone chanted, "Resign, resign." I felt alive. Justice, at last, in 30,000 nits. The next day, the story was everywhere. News vans showed up. Reporters wanted interviews. The whole light show trended on Twitter. Brenda, however, wasn't giving up. That afternoon, the power went out. Utility truck, Steve pointing at my house, claimed it was a safety hazard. The display died. The crowd groaned. But I had a secret weapon, Hank's backup generator. Buried under a tarp in my garage, it ran on gasoline, noise, and spite. I fired it up. The wall of light returned, even brighter. "Nice try, Brenda," the sign read. "Running on diesel now. You can cut the grid, but not the truth." That Sunday, the HOA called emergency town hall. It was standing room only, jam-packed with angry residents. Brenda tried to defend herself, voice trembling. I held up a flash drive and bluffed. "I have the emails, Brenda. The ones about your flower consulting trip." She crumbled. Steve, the cyborg VP, turned on her in real time, moving to vote her out. Every hand went up, even the kids. Brenda was done. The gym erupted. People were hugging, popping confetti. I could practically hear karma cackling from the bleachers. Next day, I took down the wall with Hank, put my blue curtains back up, and stood outside just to admire them. Mrs. Higgins, nice lady with a poodle, walked over and said she was the new HOA president and asked if I make a website. "Sure, Mrs. Higgins, but I charge a consulting fee." "How much?" "One homemade apple pie a month." "Deal." Later that night, I sat on my couch, TV glowing, house quiet at last. No fans humming, no generators rattling, just me, blue curtains, and peace. The moral? Sometimes you fight for something as small as a curtain, and you end up shining a light on everything that's wrong. The line between rules and tyranny is thin, and sometimes the only way to beat a bully is to out-petty them with the truth. Now, here's the real question. When does following the rules stop being about order and start being about control? And who keeps the watchdogs honest when they're the ones writing the tickets? I'd love to hear your take. Drop your thoughts below. Ever had a run-in with an HOA, a petty boss, or a ridiculous rule? How did you handle it? Let's swap stories. I've got plenty more, and I'm betting you do too.